Welcome to Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates, where we explore what it truly means to be an administrative professional in today's world. I'm Melissa Mahoney, CEO of the International Association of Administrative Professionals.
And I'm Rachel Suman, CXO of IAAP.
This podcast isn't your typical industry talk. We're here to bring you real conversations, real stories, and real solutions.
From AI to self-awareness journeys, we're here to discuss the deep issues that admins face every day. This is Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. So good to see you. We are just moving through episodes. We are loving our time with you. And I think we both are really excited about this episode. All of them really, but specifically this one, we are talking about diversifying your feed. And you might think we're talking about social media, and that's definitely a part of it. That's only a small part of it. So let's dive in and talk about what we mean when we say diversifying our feed. All our feeds. Life is a feed at this point,
Yes.
right?
I mean, yes, we're all living life in some sort of a feed, whether that's socially, professionally, your personal relationships. There's a feed happening. And if you listen to our last episode and we talked about relationships and currency exchanges, that might come into play here as we talk through diversification of your feeds. But let's really talk through what an echo chamber is and why we are challenging you to really get outside of the echo chamber. So an echo chamber really just references a lack of diversity in your feed. So you're in a space where you're hearing very consistent messages. You have surrounded yourself with people who think just like you think. And so there's a lot of validation and a lot of affirmation happening. Sometimes a lot of co-opted anger or co-opted frustration or fury or however you experience it. But it's all very similar. It's all very like-minded, like experienced, like feelings. And so that really can become what we like to call an echo chamber, where you're just bouncing the same things off of the walls to each other. And that is why we're really asking you to think about whether or not you're currently existing in an echo chamber. And if you think you might be, or if you know what that echo chamber looks like and feels like, it's a really good opportunity to sort of inspect your current situation and decide if you feel like your feeds are diverse enough. Because when we say diversify your feed, we mean all information that you're receiving, that you're giving. How can you make it more diverse? Because I think even if you are successful at stepping outside of the current echo chamber you might be living in, there's always opportunity to create more diversity. And so some of the things we've been talking about on all of these episodes around being present and being curious, they come into play here. It's how you can actually access diversification. So let's talk about some of the different quote unquote feeds. Rachel mentioned social media. That is a big feed. Lots of us spend lots and lots of time on our phones. And I know that's true because every time I drive in my car, I'm like, I don't know what you all are doing on your phones. I do not use my phone while I am driving. And I'm not judging you if you do, but I am saying maybe it's time to put the phone down and focus on your driving, because it does not make you a better driver. I promise you that. But I know we always have if we can't even get in our car, which is a heavy machine that is very dangerous, if we can't even get behind the wheel of our car without putting our phones down, there's a feed there that we're sort of addicted to. So look at your feed. What kind of information are you seeing in your feed? And does it challenge you? It might make you frustrated, or you might be seeing things that make you feel like you're getting a diverse feed, but it might just be more information that's already information you would have access to. Like when we say diversify your feed, we mean different types of voices, different types of channels, different types of viewpoints. And I do want to talk about the elephant in the room. Like politically in the United States, our country is so incredibly divided. This, for those international listeners, You may or may not know, but our current political climate is very two-sided, and not often are we crossing the lines here to get information from either side. We tend to listen to one side, assign ourselves to one side, listen to one side. And regardless, what we're actually asking you to do is not cross a political line, but think about the information you're receiving. So if your political affiliation also assigns you to all kinds of other feeds and other voices and other types of experiences, how can you step outside of that? We're not asking you to change your political view. We're not talking politics at all. We're just saying it would be impossible to talk about the diversification of feeds and not address that here in the States, the political scene is very much one side, very much divided.
Mhm.
You're either on one side or the other, or you don't get into politics. That seems to be the three sort of things that you hear from folks here. And there's still an opportunity, no matter which side you assign to, there's always an opportunity to create more diversity and add more voices to your feed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really important to say it is human nature to find people who are similar to us. And there was a whole bunch of years, I'm not a scientist, but there was a whole bunch of years where that equated to our survival, right? So there's a reason why we are wired that way. But in modern times, that really is not serving us in any way. So it is a shift and a mindset shift to say, I am going to intentionally look outside of myself, my world, my perspectives, my knowledge, all of the things that we're going to dive into when we talk about the different feeds, to say, what is somebody else experiencing? What lens does somebody else have that may help widen my lens? So, I say that because I want us to strip away the judgment that we sometimes have either for ourselves or others, to say this is an intentional mindset shift that is going against human nature in a lot of ways, to say I need to get outside of my own head, my own ecosystem, my own whatever you're living in that may create some of those echoey sounds that you're hearing.
Which I think is a really important point because we aren't here preaching that this is accessible and easy and everyone should be doing it, because it's not. I mean, to Rachel's point, it really does go against human nature. It goes against what our brain wants us to do. And that's hard. That's hard work to sort of rewire those automatic things that are happening because our body is saying, our brain is saying, no, find people who are like you. That's safe. There's safety there. There's comfort there. And so it's really difficult. Truly, diversifying your feeds is a difficult thing to do. So I want to acknowledge again what you said, because it's really critically important. Number one, that you understand our approach is not to yell at you or accuse you of doing something wrong or saying, being judgmental about being in an echo chamber, because often you find yourself, even when you are very intentional about diversifying your feed, about accessing curiosity, about, trying to stay out of judgment, it sort of happens when you're not even looking. When you're moving through life, you reach a point sometimes where you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize it, but I'm starting to fall into another echo chamber.
Yeah.
So there's zero judgment here. What we're really hoping that this episode does is just invites you to inspect your current situation, inspect your social media feed. We started with social media. Inspect the relationships you have professionally. That's a good place to look. Do you have a diverse group of folks, or are you centered on one particular profession or one particular department inside of your organization? How can you diversify your perspective inside of your workplace? That's a feed for you. Who you're talking to in the workplace. You obviously interface with certain people more often than others, but do you have opportunity to make that a more diverse experience where you're learning more about other parts of an organization? Your personal relationships, family, friends, do you have access to a diverse feed, or is it the same people that you're constantly going to? And I would even challenge in your family relationships. We all have the people in our family, whether it's, a cousin, an aunt, the person that's your person in your family. You might be have 8 siblings and you have one sibling that is like your sibling. We all sort of have those relationships, and those are great. But generally speaking, those relationships are sort of an echo chamber. You align to that person because you're getting something similar. You're getting some validation, some affirmation from them. How can you even diversify your family feed? I think there's always opportunity there. And that's really what we're hoping that we can do, is really invite you. Again, I will say it again because I think it's important. This is just an invitation for you to start inspecting all of these feeds and maybe pick one to start with.
Absolutely. I think the other invitation too, in addition to what you said so beautifully, is we may be on overload, right? Like I sound like a scientist, like I know what I'm talking about. I don't. But, in the last 50 years, think about how much information we have access to now, just as humans. Last 100 years, it has changed so dramatically. I mean, we joke about social media wasn't a thing when we were younger. Your feed was the TV, the newspaper, and your hopefully wireless phone that you got and could walk around the house talking on, right? So, there is a part of this that as you go into this, if you accept the invitation and really start to look at this, maybe your feed needs to be unplugged a little bit. Like people take social media vacations or social media breaks. Like maybe you need a news break. Maybe you need an everything break, and you need a day to just be outside and make nature your feed. Maybe that's what it looks like. But having that awareness to know, like, before I can even think about diversifying, I need a reset. I need a cleanse. I need whatever that looks like for you. I think that's a really essential part of this process.
Very much agree with that. And I love the take a break in nature. The disconnect can be really refreshing, and that's a really accessible way to sort of restart your feed. So I would say if you do attempt the disconnect, when you go back to your feed, don't just go back to the same feed.
Yes.
Like that disconnect gives you an opportunity to really reset, restart. And that's, I know we keep talking about it in terms of social media because I think that's, when we say feed, that's the most accessible thing that we can think of, but we truly do mean your entire ecosystem, your entire world. Like think about the news feed, think about the television you access, think about the stores you visit, even the diversification of a grocery store experience can offer you opportunities that would not have existed if you went to the same store that you always go to and you walk down the same aisles that you always walk down because you know where everything is. It's super comfortable. You're going to get in and out. That's great. It serves a purpose. But what if you went to a different store and found that they actually stock items that you didn't even know existed, or they have fresher produce, or, whatever it is that you discover? That discovery happens when you diversify your feed. And I think there are so many opportunities besides just your social media feed. I think that's definitely diversify that. And when you take that disconnect, think about like, what could you do differently? What are you doing that's so routine right now? You would never even challenge it. You would never think there's an opportunity here. Look for those things. The grocery store is a great example because I think everyone that I know has a store, has a home store, whether it is, a local store, a big box store. If you're a Costco shopper, everyone has a routine around those sort of routine parts of life. So what other areas in your life besides the grocery store that you always go to, what other parts of your life could you diversify? Where do you find the routines, find the things where you're like, oh, I always do this thing at this time, or this is the place that we always go for coffee, or, and we're not even saying that you should stop going there. Like that is not what we're saying at all. Like there's some beauty in having sort of a home base. What we are saying is, does it always have to be the place you go? Or are there opportunities for you to switch it up one day and discover something new, meet someone you would have never met because you don't normally or typically visit the place that you went to today?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one of the things that we talked about that I thought was really interesting for this episode, specifically around IAAP, is your training feed. How many of us look for training opportunities that are very familiar, that are possibly enhancing skills that you already have, are something that your organization has said, this is coming, and so I need to learn this? Like, how many of us look for training opportunities for things that aren't even on our radar, right? Like, maybe you're kind of dabbling in AI, see a former episode. How can you really diversify your training feed to be able to see a wide range? I mean, we talk about the administrative profession all the time, and one of the benefits is the variety of skills, of tasks, of all of those things. So it gives a beautiful opportunity to really diversify what we are taking in as professional development.
100%. And you said see an earlier episode for AI. Also see an earlier episode for the concept of professional development, because we talked about executive coaching in one of our previous episodes, and how just as admins, we wouldn't necessarily assign executive coaching to something that would be accessible to us. That is an opportunity right there to diversify your training feed, thinking about accessing things that maybe wouldn't be quote unquote preferred or the typical thing that you would access as an admin, could give you access, even if it's like an accounting course. Depending, obviously, if that has nothing to do with your career, then you may not be interested in it. But what if, there's parts of your role that you do access accounting in some ways, and it would be great to know more about what's on the other side of the work that you're doing that impacts the accounting department or the marketing department. Is there some training in some of those other fields that would give you greater knowledge or access to some of the work you're doing in a different sort of way? And then leadership development, I think, is what I would highlight the most, especially as it relates to IAAP. So often admins brush over the content we have around leadership development because they've already excluded themselves from the relevancy of leadership development. And so the folks who actually find it are generally farther along in their training. And so they're looking for something different. Look for something different now. There's, you don't have to go through all the other things first, all the typical general things to get to a diverse opportunity. You can start off with a diverse opportunity. You could say, you know what, I'm ready for whatever. Like, let's do Aspire conference. I've never been to Summit. I've know very little about IAAP, but I'm going to jump in. You're welcome to do so. There's nothing stopping you except for usually yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking about, we've hit on it a little bit, but what's the benefit of diversifying our feed? Like, why do we think it's important enough to elevate to a podcast episode? And I think the danger of the echo chamber is not only do we miss all of those cool opportunities that you mentioned, but it creates a close-minded just mindset, if I can use that word. Growth mindset is something that we talk a lot about. There's a session at Summit on it. And when we live in an echo chamber, when we live in a space of, I heard a quote that was so beautiful, the most dangerous addiction is comfort. And I say that often to myself because it's true. The danger of really falling into those same routines, same situations, same voices, same all of the things is not only do we miss the world around us, but we're closed off to opportunities. And then I think sometimes we get resentful that opportunities are not coming our way, and we are actually the ones who are keeping it away from us. So if we had to name a benefit, I think that would probably be it.
Yes, I absolutely love what you just pointed to because and I'm going to repeat it because I think it's critically important. We do tend to get resentful when things aren't happening for us, or we're watching other people have successes and can't figure out how to access that. And it's an oversimplification to say that diversifying your feed is going to solve all of those problems. And it will increase your ability to be available for opportunities. So when you are living inside of that echo chamber, it truly serves you as a chamber. You are closed off. To your point, you can get closed-minded, but you are literally living inside of something that is intentionally closed off. And so I think the opportunity is breaking down those walls, which gives you greater access to all of those things that you might feel like you're missing out on. So I really, really loved that highlight, which is why I repeated it, because I think I really do think we don't see it when it's happening.
Yeah.
You don't experience it that way when it's not conscious when that's happening. It's part of your experience. And when you do diversify all of your experiences and you're more open to uncertainty and discomfort, you actually are opening yourselves up to more opportunity and more diverse experiences than what you would experience inside of the echo chamber.
Yeah. Yep. And possibilities, right?
Yeah.
I think of the analogy, I think we've used it before, but it's so apt. When you get a new car, you're looking for a new car and you have a specific make and model that you want, and all of a sudden they are everywhere. Like, you all have seen that, right? Like, you're driving down the road and you're like, oh my gosh, I just saw 4 of those cars. Those cars have been driving around the whole time. It's just your lens has changed. So that's what we're encouraging. Opening up your lens, pretend you're buying all the cars and just see what is out there in the world, and be really curious. You said this earlier, and I think it's really important to repeat and highlight. I loved it, is curiosity is essential to diversifying your feed. Because if you go into diversifying your feed and you're arguing with all of the different new opportunities that are coming to you, or saying that's not right, they're wrong, this is not, that is, you're living in your chamber and you're just fighting off new things within your chamber. So having a curious mindset before you start out diversifying whatever feed you're going to start with, that you cannot go into this without those glasses on your face.
Very much so. Yes. And I think that's the benefit too of breaking the walls down, as opposed to some of that when you're first starting out and you feel yourself getting defensive or offensive about the information that's coming in because it counters what you've learned in your echo chamber. If you can get past that and really get to a curious space, you can start to break the walls down. But if you live in that defensiveness, you're actually just making the wall stronger. So I know it feels like you're diversifying your feed because you're like, no, I'm constantly arguing with all of these other viewpoints. You're actually just building more strength around your echo chamber when you're living in that defensive mindset or that judgmental mindset. So it's not an easy experience. It's a muscle. You definitely have to strengthen the muscle. And if you stop using it, it will atrophy. Like, it's literally, you have to continuously work at it, because curiosity and uncertainty are really difficult things to sort of live and breathe each and every day. To our earlier point, your brain is designed to be comfortable, to be to have the quickest solutions as possible. It's trying to create the quickest synapses it possibly can. And that means it doesn't want you to diversify. It doesn't want you to challenge it in that way. And so even when you think about like how learning happens, it doesn't happen in the spaces where you're not challenged. It happens in the spaces where you feel the most challenged. That's usually when you grow the most. That's usually when you learn the most. And so we're asking you to take that same sort of thought process and approach to diversification of your feeds. I like to say, I had a conversation with someone that was really challenged by curiosity and my viewpoint of the world. And they kept saying, I don't know how you can live with so much uncertainty. And I said, the thing that I'm the most certain about is that I'm uncertain about everything. And that rocked their world. They just had such a hard time even thinking about living a life like that. And so it gave me access to, like, she's very early in her exploration of the echo chamber she's in, and how to maybe access some of those things. And I will say it's hard. It's very uncomfortable to know you are uncertain. To be certain that you're uncertain is really uncomfortable. And so liberating and freeing and rewarding in its own way. So there is a reward in it on the other side. I definitely feel like we can connect better with people outside of the echo chamber and start to actually build some of that relational currency, going back to our last episode. If we can find the space where we get more comfortable being uncertain.
Absolutely. Ooh, amen. Everything you said. I love it. Well, we are inviting you to
It's an invitation.
Please look at one feed only. Like, we've talked a lot about this, and you said this earlier, and I want to make sure, like, your brain would not be happy if you tried to do all of the things all at once. So please just pick one and really, really lean in and see. And, if we can help support that journey in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to talk with you about it and help.
That's a real legit invitation too. I just want to say it, like,
yes,
we love these types of combos. So, like, seriously, we would jump on a Zoom call in a heartbeat if you want to talk about this.
Yes. Send us an email. We would love to hear any of the things. Even if you're disagreeing, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out together. But we so love these times. I love this time with you, and I hope you all are really enjoying these as well. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Yes. See you soon. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates. We hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of admins with us.
Remember, this podcast isn't just about listening. It's about taking action. Whether it's advocating for yourself in the workplace or supporting your fellow admins, let's continue to elevate this profession together. If you have any thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes, don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media or through our website.
Until next time, keep pushing beyond the desk. And remember, change begins with you. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.